A woman thought she had the perfect marriage until one day she discovered that her husband was actually her brother. Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching this video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Enjoy the story, everyone. The evening sun cast a golden glow over Santa Fe as Eleanor Mitchell admired her reflection in the mirror. At 52, she still had that spark in her eyes that Nathan had fallen in love with 19 years ago. Their story began at her friend's birthday party, where Nate had approached her with a charming smile and an awkward introduction that somehow worked perfectly. "Ready for date night, beautiful?" Nate called from downstairs. Their weekly tradition had never faltered, even after almost 2 decades together. Ellie smiled, touching the silver pendant he'd given her on their 15th anniversary. Their marriage was everything she'd ever dreamed of, a beautiful Victorian home in historic Santa Fe, mutual respect, unwavering support, and a love that seemed to grow stronger each year. "Coming down," she replied, taking one last look in the mirror. The life they'd built together was perfect. Nate, with his successful architectural firm specializing in traditional adobe structures, and Ellie with her art gallery featuring local southwestern artists, they had become fixtures in Santa Fe's tight-knit community. The restaurant was packed with the Friday night crowd when they arrived. Their favorite table by the window overlooked the plaza, strings of lights twinkling against the deepening blue sky. "Eleanor!" "Nathan!" Margaret Collins, one of their oldest friends, approached their table. "I almost didn't recognize you two sitting over here, though I should have. You both have the same smile when you look at each other." 19 years together will do that," Nate laughed, raising his glass. Margaret tilted her head curiously. "It's not just that. You know, I was looking at old photos from the Historical Society fundraiser, and I swear, Nate, you look just like Ellie's father did in his younger days. Same eyes, same jawline." Ellie chuckled. "You're the third person to say something similar this month. My cousin Judith mentioned it at our Christmas gathering too." "Well, they say couples start to look alike after years together," Nate offered, though something in his expression flickered momentarily. The evening continued pleasantly, but Margaret's observation lingered in Ellie's mind. Later that night, while Nate showered, she found herself opening an old photo album. Her father, George Mitchell, stared back at her from a faded photograph taken in the 1960s. The resemblance was indeed striking. The same crinkle around the eyes when smiling, the same cleft chin. "What are you looking at?" Nate asked, coming into the bedroom with a towel wrapped around his waist. "Just some old photos," Ellie replied, closing the album perhaps too quickly. "Dad's birthday is coming up next month, would have been his 80th. Nate sat beside her, placing a gentle kiss on her shoulder. "He was a good man. I wish I could have known him longer." "He adored you," Ellie said, remembering how her father had immediately taken to Nate. There had been something in her father's eyes when they first met, a curious recognition that Ellie had attributed to approval. As they settled into bed that night, Ellie's mind drifted to a strange comment her distant cousin Judith had made during their last family reunion. "Your Nate looks exactly like your father when he was young. Those Mitchell genes must be strong. You two could be siblings." What had been a passing joke now planted a seed of unease that would slowly take root in the coming weeks. The comment about family resemblance continued to nag at Ellie. One rainy Sunday afternoon, while Nate was at a client meeting, she found herself climbing the narrow stairs to their attic. Dust motes danced in the dim light as she pulled the chain on the single bulb illuminating decades of stored memories. "This is silly," she muttered, opening a trunk containing her mother's belongings. Patricia Mitchell had passed away 5 years ago, leaving behind neatly organized boxes of family history. Ellie hadn't intended to start an investigation, but as she leafed through old photographs, the similarities between Nate and her father became impossible to ignore. It wasn't just a vague resemblance. They shared specific features, mannerisms that genetics, not coincidence, would explain. In the bottom of the trunk, Ellie found an unfamiliar shoebox. Inside was a photo she'd never seen before, her mother, much younger, holding a baby. The date on the back read March 12, 1969, nearly 2 years before Ellie was born. Her mother's expression wasn't one of joy, but of profound sadness. "What is this?" Ellie whispered, heart racing. She'd never heard of another child, never known her mother to speak of a baby before her. Digging deeper, she found a partially torn document mentioning a place called New Dawn Home for Young Women in Taos. Newspaper clippings explained her mother's mysterious 6-month absence in 1968 as recuperation from exhaustion, but the dates aligned perfectly with a pregnancy timeline. Ellie sat back on her heels, mind spinning. A terrible thought was forming, but she needed more evidence. She found her mother's old address book and located her Aunt June's information. At 87, June was the only person who might know the truth about this mysterious baby. The next day, Ellie visited the assisted living facility where June resided. The elderly woman's face changed when she saw the photograph. "Where did you find this?" June asked, hands trembling. "In Mom's things." "Aunt June, who is this baby?" June sighed deeply. "Your mother made me swear never to tell, but perhaps it's time. Patricia got pregnant at 19, unmarried. Back then it was considered shameful. Your grandfather forced her to go to New Dawn until the baby was born. She had a child before me." Ellie's voice cracked. "A boy, given up for adoption immediately. She never even held him, except for this photo. The adoption agency arranged everything. She wasn't allowed to know where he went. Did she ever try to find him?" June looked away. "No, but she never forgot him. When she met your father and had you, she tried to make a new life. But every March 12th she would light a candle and sit alone. Why didn't she ever tell me I had a brother? Some secrets become too painful to unearth after being buried so long." June hesitated, then added, "Eleanor, there's something else. The adoption agency was called Pearson Family Services." Ellie froze. Pearson, the same as Nate's last name. "Nate was adopted," Ellie whispered, the terrifying possibility now impossible to ignore. "When was he born?" June asked quietly. "March 12, 1969, Ellie replied, the date she'd celebrated with him for 19 years, suddenly taking on a horrifying new significance. June closed her eyes. "Oh, dear God." Ellie left her aunt's residence in a daze, clutching the photograph of the brother she never knew she had, the terrible suspicion growing that he might be the same man she had married. The Santa Fe County Records Office was a maze of filing cabinets and dust-covered documents. Ellie spent days searching through adoption records from the late 1960s, careful to hide her investigation from Nate. Her hands trembled each time she opened a new file, both dreading and needing to find the truth. "Can I help you find something specific?" asked an elderly clerk who had noticed her frequent visits. "I'm researching a family history project," Ellie replied, the lie bitter on her tongue. "Particularly adoptions through Pearson Family Services in 1969. The clerk's eyes lit with recognition. "Oh, they were a small agency before Mr. Pearson expanded it across the Southwest. Most of their records were sealed, but we have some administrative documents." Those documents proved to be the breakthrough Ellie needed. She found a ledger listing infants placed for adoption, including one male born to P. Mitchell on March 12, 1969, adopted by Thomas and Evelyn Pearson of Colorado Springs. The same names Nate had mentioned countless times as his adoptive parents. Ellie's world tilted on its axis. She stumbled out of the records office into the bright New Mexico sunshine that now seemed to mock the darkness spreading inside her. She needed absolute certainty. While Nate slept that night, she carefully collected several strands of his hair from his brush and ordered a DNA test online, sending in her own sample as well. The waiting period was excruciating. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal while her inner world collapsed. During those weeks, Ellie discovered one final piece of evidence. In her mother's desk drawer, she found a small key that opened a lockbox containing a diary. The entries from 19 years ago turned her blood to ice. "October 15th, met Eleanor's new boyfriend today. When he walked in, I nearly fainted. Those eyes, that smile. My boy has found his way back to us. When he mentioned being adopted by the Pearsons, I knew immediately. What cruel twist of fate has brought my children together this way? I should tell them the truth, but seeing Eleanor's happiness, how can I destroy that? The secret has already cost me so much. I cannot bear to watch it destroy them too." The DNA test results arrived in a plain envelope. Ellie waited until Nate left for a business trip to open it. The clinical language did nothing to soften the blow. 99.9% probability of full sibling relationship. Her knees gave out as she sank to the floor. 19 years of memories flashed before her eyes. Their first date, their wedding, countless intimate moments, all tainted by this unbearable truth. The life she thought was perfect was built on a foundation of lies and a terrible coincidence that her mother had recognized but never revealed. That night, Ellie packed a small bag and checked into a hotel downtown. She couldn't face their home, their bed, their life, knowing what she now knew. When Nate returned 3 days later, he found her waiting in the living room, surrounded by the evidence she had gathered. "Eleanor, what's happening?" "You've been unreachable for days," his concerned voice trailed off as he saw the documents spread across the coffee table. "Sit down, Nate," she said quietly. "There's something we need to discuss that will change everything." His expression shifted from confusion to concern as he joined her on the couch. "I've discovered something about us, about our families," she began, her voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside her. "Something my mother knew but never told us." The months following the revelation were the darkest of Ellie's life. Their marriage was quietly annulled under extraordinary circumstances, with a judge sealing the records to protect their privacy. Nate moved to Phoenix, unable to remain in the city where every corner held memories of their shared life. Ellie couldn't bear to stay in their Victorian home. She sold it and rented a small apartment near the plaza, where the constant flow of tourists provided anonymous company that demanded nothing from her. Nights were the hardest, the silence deafening, the emptiness of her bed a constant reminder of what she had lost. She met with Patricia at the nursing home, the confrontation 19 years overdue. "How could you?" Ellie asked, voice breaking. "You watched us fall in love, Mary. Build a life together, knowing the truth the entire time." Patricia's aged face crumpled with grief. "I was a coward. By the time I recognized him, you were already in love. I told myself it was too late, that revealing the truth would only cause pain. Instead, you let us live a lie for 19 years, Ellie said bitterly. "The pain now is infinitely worse." Patricia couldn't disagree. "I've carried this shame for over 50 years, Eleanor. I was 19, unmarried and pregnant in a time when that ruined a girl's life. My parents sent me away, forced me to give up my baby. When I saw him again, saw Nate with you, I was paralyzed by fear and guilt." Understanding her mother's choices didn't ease the pain, but it helped Ellie recognize that healing would require forgiveness, not just of Patricia, but eventually of herself. Salvation came in an unexpected form. Margaret, whose innocent comment had first sparked Ellie's investigation, ran a support group for women rebuilding their lives after trauma. "You don't need to share details," Margaret said, leading Ellie to her first meeting. "Just be among people who understand what it means to have your life shattered, and then find the courage to pick up the pieces." In that circle of women, Ellie found breathing room. There, she wasn't defined by her tragedy, but by her resilience. One evening, unpacking boxes in her new apartment, Ellie discovered an old set of paints Nate had given her years ago. That night, she painted for the first time, a chaotic explosion of dark colors pierced by a single streak of gold. It wasn't technically good, but it carried the truth of her emotions. Painting became her therapy, canvas after canvas filled with her pain, grief, anger, and eventually, small moments of peace. The gallery she had sold to a former employee agreed to display some pieces in a small exhibition called Rebirth. 6 months after the revelation, Ellie received a letter from Nate. He had found work with an organization that helped adoptees locate their birth families. "Perhaps some good can come from our pain," he wrote. "I don't regret loving you, Eleanor. I regret only that the circumstances made that love impossible to continue." They met once more, at a neutral cafe in Albuquerque. The resemblance that had once seemed like cosmic coincidence, now painfully obvious. The same eyes, the same hands, the unmistakable markers of shared DNA. "Where do we go from here?" Ellie asked. "Forward," Nate replied simply. "Separately, but perhaps someday as the family we were always meant to be, as brother and sister." A year later, Ellie opened her own small studio where she taught painting to beginners. Her work, now featured in galleries across the Southwest, told the story of a woman rebuilding her life from ashes. She maintained a careful, healing relationship with Patricia until her mother's passing. With Nate, she established a distant but respectful connection, acknowledging their shared history without dwelling on it. The life Ellie rebuilt wasn't the one she had planned, but it was authentically hers, created from truth, resilience, and the hard-won wisdom that comes from facing life's most painful revelations. Thank you for joining us for Eleanor's powerful journey. If this story of family secrets and resilience touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. It helps us bring more moving stories to life every day. We'd love to know your thoughts. What would you have done in Eleanor's position? Share your reflections in the comments below, and be sure to come back tomorrow for another captivating story that will stay with you long after the video ends.